This tangled, forbidden mess between me, my math teacher, and the school principal all started during my very last year of high school, the end of everything I'd ever known. It began with Mr. Robinson, my impossibly young, impossibly handsome math teacher. He was only 23, yet stood with an authority that belied his age. He had this 90s curtains haircut, light brown hair with golden highlights that caught the fluorescent lights of the classroom whenever he ran a hand through it to adjust the bangs. His smile was what truly did me in. A lopsided, confident thing that made one side of his mouth lift higher than the other, revealing a faint dimple in his chin. I'd sit in the third row, third seat, and watch him. Watch the way his slender fingers traced equations on the whiteboard, the way he'd lean against his desk when explaining a particularly difficult concept, making the fabric of his dress pants pull taut against his lean thighs. I'd trace the lines of his sharp cheekbones in my mind, wonder about the color of his eyes up close. Grey-blue I'd seen from afar, with a dreamy, sly quality that made my stomach clench. I knew it was wrong. I knew he had a wedding ring, though he rarely spoke of a wife. I knew he was my teacher, the most forbidden of all fruits, but I couldn't help myself. I'd never felt this way about anyone before, boy or girl. This pull, this magnetic attraction that made my hands sweat and my heart race whenever he so much as glanced my way. Then came Mr. Harrison, the school principal, a man in his 50s with the energy and build of someone half his age. He had this commanding presence that filled any room he entered, enhanced by stylish aviator sunglasses he often wore indoors, making him seem both intimidating and ridiculously cool. His hair was short and textured, with bleached strands that caught the light, creating a sun-kissed effect that made him look like he'd just stepped off a beach instead of out of an administrative office. I first truly noticed him during a school assembly. He'd stood at the podium, his voice resonant and assured, commanding the attention of hundreds of unruly students with ease. I'd been captivated by the confidence in his stance, the way his tailored shirt hinted at a lean, muscular physique beneath. He had this mature depth to him, laugh lines around his eyes that suggested he didn't take life too seriously, even as he maintained an authoritative air. I never imagined that these two men, so different yet so compelling in their own ways, would come to play such significant roles in my life, that their secret desires would intertwine with my own in ways I could never have predicted, that I would become the center of their attention, the focal point of their hidden longings. The afternoon it all began to unravel. I was staying late for dance practice. The gymnasium was nearly empty as I moved through the choreography, my body glistening with sweat, my breath coming in ragged pants. I'd stripped down to a tank top and shorts, the cool air feeling delicious against my heated skin. I didn't notice Mr. Harrison standing in the doorway until he cleared his throat. I froze mid-movement, turning to find him, watching me with an unreadable expression. His aviators were off, revealing dark, intense eyes that seemed to see right through me. "Jake, right?" he asked, though I knew he knew my name. I was the captain of the dance team, after all. I nodded, wiping sweat from my brow with the back of my hand. "Yes, Mr. Harrison. You've got natural talent," he said, stepping into the gymnasium. His presence seemed to swallow the space, making the high ceilings feel lower, the vast rooms smaller. Raw, but that can be shaped. "Thank you, sir." I managed, my heart suddenly pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with exercise. He circled me slowly, like a predator assessing its prey. "Your posture is excellent, but you're holding tension in your shoulders." Here, without warning, his hands were on me. Warm, firm, slightly calloused fingers pressing into the muscles of my upper back. I flinched at the contact, a jolt of electricity shooting through me. "Relax," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "Let me help you." I tried, gods. I tried, but how could I relax with the school principal's hands on my body, with his scent, something spicy and masculine and utterly intoxicating, filling my senses? I could feel the heat radiating from him, the strength in those fingers as they worked knots in my muscles I hadn't even been aware of. "There," he said, his voice slower now, a near whisper. "Better." I could only nod, speechless, hyper-aware of every place our bodies connected, his chest almost brushing against my back, the warmth of his hand seeping through my thin tank top. When he finally stepped away, I nearly stumbled forward from the sudden loss of contact. "Good work today, Jake," he said, his professional mask back in place as if nothing had happened. keep it up." And then he was gone, leaving me reeling in the empty gymnasium, my body tingling, my mind racing with questions I had no business asking. The next day in math class, I couldn't focus. I kept replaying the encounter with Mr. Harrison, the feeling of his hands on my skin, the depth of those dark eyes when he looked at me. When the bell rang, signaling the end of class, I packed up slowly, still lost in thought. "Jake," a familiar voice called out. "A word?" I looked up to find Mr. Robinson standing by his desk, one hip cocked, a devastating smile playing on his lips. "Yes, Mr. Robinson?" He waited until the last student had exited the classroom before speaking again, closing the door with a soft click that seemed unnaturally loud in the suddenly silent room. "You seemed distracted today," he said, circling around to stand in front of me. "Everything all right?" "Fine," I lied, my throat tight. "Just tired." His gray-blue eyes narrowed slightly, and I had the unnerving feeling that he saw right through me. "Is that so?" he asked, reaching out, his fingers brushing a stray strand of hair from my forehead. The touch was fleeting, barely there, but it sent a jolt through me that had nothing to do with static electricity. "You've got a smudge," he murmured, his thumb hovering near my temple. "Right here." Before I could respond, he'd closed the distance between us, his body nearly flush against mine as he reached up to wipe at the non-existent mark. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, smell the faint scent of something clean and crisp, like mountain air after a storm. "There," he said, his voice lower than usual, the words vibrating against my ear. "All clean." I swallowed hard, my pulse racing, acutely aware of how close we were standing. If I leaned forward just slightly, our lips would. "There you are!" The classroom door burst open, revealing Mr. Harrison in the doorway, a grin on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Robinson, I've been looking for you everywhere." Mr. Robinson straightened abruptly, stepping away from me so quickly I nearly stumbled backward. "Harrison, what can I do for you?" "Just need those quarterly reports," Mr. Harrison said, striding into the room with an easy confidence that seemed to suck all the air out of the space. His gaze flickered between me and Mr. Robinson, assessing, calculating. "Jake, shouldn't you be heading home?" "Yes, sir," I mumbled, grabbing my bag and practically fleeing the classroom, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. As I hurried down the hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between the three of us, that I was caught in the middle of a game I didn't understand, with rules I didn't know. The weekend brought a much-needed reprieve from school, but not from my thoughts. I couldn't stop replaying the moments with both men. The possessive touch of Mr. Harrison's hands on my back, the intimate brush of Mr. Robinson's fingers against my forehead. I was drowning in confused desire, a teenager experiencing feelings far beyond my years. Saturday afternoon found me at the local boxing gym, a place I usually went to clear my head, the rhythmic thud of my fists against the heavy bag, the burn in my muscles, the sweat dripping down my face. It was a familiar comfort that usually helped me organize my thoughts. Today, it wasn't working. "Your form's off," a deep voice said behind me. I turned to find Mr. Harrison, leaning against the doorway, dressed in workout gear that showcased the lean, muscular physique I'd only glimpsed beneath his professional attire. He looked even more imposing here, in the casual setting of the gym, his hair damp with sweat, those intense eyes focused solely on me. I didn't know you came here," I stammered, lowering my hands. "Every Saturday," he said, pushing off the door frame and approaching me. "And I know for a fact that your cross is usually cleaner than that. Mine's somewhere else." Before I could answer, he was circling me again, that predator-like assessment that made my skin tingle with anticipation. "Your hips are off balance. Here." His hands found my waist, strong, warm fingers gripping the fabric of my t-shirt, pulling me backwards slightly until my back was nearly flush against his chest. "Rotate like this," he murmured, guiding my body through the motion. "Keep your core tight, but don't tense up your shoulders." I could barely breathe, let alone focus on form correction. Every nerve ending was firing, hyper-aware of the man behind me. His chest pressed against my back, the warmth of his breath against my ear, the undeniable evidence of his own physical condition that suggested my effect on him wasn't one-sided. "Again," he commanded, his voice low and husky. I threw a half-hearted punch, my movements clumsy, my mind consumed by the proximity of his body. "Jake," he chided, his hands tightening on my waist. "You're not concentrating." "Sorry, sir," I gasped out, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could feel it against his chest. His fingers traced the curve of my hip, a slow, deliberate movement that made me shiver despite the gym's humid warmth. "What's distracting you, Jake? That math teacher of yours?" My breath hitched. "What?" A soft chuckle rumbled in his chest. "I'm not blind, you know. I've seen the way you look at him in class, the way he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching." I couldn't form words, couldn't deny what he'd seen so clearly. His lips brushed against my ear. "He's too young for you. Inexperienced. He doesn't know what to do with someone like you." "Someone like me?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "Passionate, intense, full of fire," he murmured, his hands sliding up my sides, thumbs brushing against my ribcage. "You need someone who can handle that, someone who knows how to stoke those flames rather than being consumed by them." "But he's your employee," I protested weakly. "Which makes this complicated, doesn't it?" Mr. Harrison's thumbs traced patterns against my skin, sending jolts of electricity through me. "But some things are worth the complication." His grip tightened, possessive, and then, slowly, deliberately, he turned me to face him. We were standing so close I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, could count the individual laugh lines that creased the corners when a genuine smile finally reached them. "I could teach you things, Jake," he said, one hand coming up to cup my cheek, thumb brushing against my lower lip. Things he could only dream of. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic rhythm that matched the pulse between my legs. I'd never been this close to anyone before, never experienced this overwhelming desire that clouded my thoughts and stole my breath. I should go," I stammered, taking a half-step back. His expression shuttered, those intense eyes unreadable as he dropped his hands. "Of course," he said, all business again. "Don't forget to work on your form before next weekend." And just like that, the moment was broken, leaving me trembling and confused in the middle of the gym. The following Monday found me back in math class, trying, and failing, to focus on quadratic equations. Every time Mr. Robinson turned to write on the whiteboard, I found myself watching the way his dress shirt pulled taut across his shoulders, the way his slender fingers gripped the marker. Every glance he sent my way made my stomach clench with a mixture of guilt and longing. When the bell finally rang, I packed up with trembling hands, desperate to escape. "Jake," he called out, his soft, melodic voice stopping me in my tracks. "Stay behind for a moment." I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "Yes, Mr. Robinson?" The classroom door clicked shut behind the last student, leaving us in the silence punctuated only by the hum of the fluorescent lights. He circled around to my desk, perching on the edge of the one beside mine, bringing him close. Too close. "You've been distracted in class," he observed, those gray-blue eyes piercing through me. "Something on your mind?" "No," I lied, my gaze fixed on a smudge on my desk. "Just tired." His fingers reached out, tracing the line of my jaw, making me flinch at the contact. "Is that so?" he murmured, leaning closer, that signature half-smile playing on his lips. "Because I think you're lying to me." My breath hitched as he leaned in even further, his lips near my ear. "I saw you at the gym yesterday," he whispered, the words warm against my skin, "with Harrison." My head snapped up, my eyes wide with shock. You were there?" "In the observation room," he confirmed, his thumb stroking the sensitive skin beneath my jaw. "I saw everything." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He'd seen Mr. Harrison touching me, heard the intimate words exchanged between us. "He's too old for you, Jake," Mr. Robinson murmured, his other hand coming up to rest on my shoulder, fingers kneading the tense muscles there. "He'll break your heart without meaning to, or worse, without caring." "And you won't?" I challenged, my voice trembling with emotion. His smile widened, that lopsided, confident thing that made my knees weak. "I'd rather break my own than see you hurt." Before I could respond, he'd closed the remaining distance between us, his lips capturing mine in a kiss that stole the air from my lungs. It was nothing like I'd imagined. Softer, gentler, yet somehow more intense. His lips were plush and warm, moving against mine with a tentative exploration that sent shivers down my spine. I kissed him back with a desperation that shocked me, my hands coming up to grip the front of his shirt, pulling him closer. His fingers tangled in my hair, tilting my head to deepen the kiss, and I whimpered against his mouth, overwhelmed by the rush of sensations. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless, our foreheads resting against each other. "Jake," he whispered, my name a prayer on his lips. This is dangerous." I know, I managed, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I don't care." His grey-blue eyes searched mine, a storm of emotions swirling in their depths. Desire, fear, longing, regret. "I have a wife. A child," he said, the words pained. "And I'm a student," I countered, my fingers tightening on his shirt. "We're already in dangerous territory." A soft laugh escaped him, humorless and strained. "That we are." He leaned in again, capturing my lips in another kiss, this one more possessive, more demanding. I could feel the urgency in him, the years of suppressed desire finally breaking through the carefully constructed facade of the devoted family man. When we parted this time, there was a new resolve in his eyes. "Meet me after school," he said, his voice firm. "In the teacher's lounge. No one will be there." I could only nod, my throat too tight for words. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I moved through my classes on autopilot, my mind replaying that kiss over and over. The feel of his lips against mine, the taste of him, the way my body had responded to his touch. Every glance from Mr. Robinson in the hallway, every accidental brushing of our hands when he passed me my papers, sent another jolt of electricity through me. By the time the final bell rang, I was a bundle of nerves, excitement warring with guilt, anticipation battling with fear. I made my way to the teacher's lounge with trembling steps, my palms sweating, my heart racing so fast I thought it might burst from my chest. The room was empty as promised, bathed in the dim light of late afternoon filtering through partially closed blinds. The faint scent of coffee and chalk dust hung in the air, along with something else, something uniquely Mr. Robinson. He was already there, leaning against the counter with a mug in his hands, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him outside the classroom. He'd shed his suit jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his dress shirt, revealing forearms dusted with light hair and corded with lean muscle. "You came," he said, setting down the mug and approaching me slowly. "I said I would," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. He stopped in front of me, so close I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could count the individual gold flecks in his grey-blue eyes. "Are you scared, Jake?" "Yes," I admitted, my gaze fixed on his lips. "But I'm more scared of what will happen if I walk away." His hand came up to cup my cheek, stroking my skin in a gesture that was becoming itchingly familiar. "I won't let anything happen to you," he promised, his thumb brushing against my lower lip. "But we need to be careful. Very, very careful." "I know," I breathed, leaning into his touch. "I can be careful." "Can you?" he challenged, his other hand coming to rest on my hip, pulling me flush against him. "Can you pretend you don't feel this when we're in class? Can you act normal when all you'll want to do is this?" His lips captured mine again, and this kiss was different. Deeper, more demanding, filled with all the pent-up frustration and desire we'd both been suppressing. I melted against him, my hands fisting in the fabric of his shirt as I kissed him back with equal fervor. His tongue traced my lower lip, seeking entrance, and I opened for him willingly, a soft moan escaping as our tongues met, sliding against each other in an intimate dance that made my knees weak. His hands roamed my back, pulling me impossibly closer, the evidence of his own desire pressing against my hip. I could feel the rapid beating of his heart against my chest, matching the frantic rhythm of my own. Every nerve ending was on fire, every cell in my body alive with sensation. "I want you, Jake," he gasped against my lips, his hand sliding down to cup my rear, squeezing possessively. "God, how I want you." "You have me," I breathed, arching against him, my body responding to his touch in ways I'd never experienced before. "I'm yours." His response was a guttural groan, his lips trailing down my jaw to my neck, where he nipped and sucked gently, sending waves of pleasure through me. I tilted my head to give him better access, my fingers tangling in the golden strands of his hair as I held him to me. "We can't," he murmured against my skin, even as his hands continued their exploration, mapping my body through my clothes. Not here. Not now. Then when? I asked, my voice trembling with need. Soon, he promised, straightening to look at me, his gray-blue eyes dark with desire. I swear, soon. But we need to be smart about this, discreet. I nodded, though my body protested the distance as he stepped away. I understand. Do you? He asked, running a hand through those perfect golden bangs, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as a sign of agitation. This isn't just some high school crush, Jake. This could ruin everything. My career, my family, your future. I know the risks, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm not a child. A ghost of a smile played on his lips. No, you're not, he agreed, reaching out to trace the line of my collarbone with one finger. You're far more dangerous than that. The way he said it, half warning, half admiration, made my stomach clench with anticipation. I was playing with fire and I knew it, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I should go, he said reluctantly, glancing at the clock on the wall. I have a faculty meeting. Okay, I murmured, my disappointment palpable. He leaned in, capturing my lips in one last brief kiss. This weekend, he whispered against my mouth. Come to my place, after my wife takes the kids to her mother's. My heart leaped at the invitation, at the trust it implied. I'll be there. With one last lingering look, he was gone, leaving me trembling in the empty teacher's lounge, the taste of him still on my lips. The rest of the week passed in a haze of anticipation. Every stolen glance with Mr. Robinson in the hallway, every accidental brushing of our hands when he handed me back a graded paper, was fuel to the fire burning inside me. I found myself counting down the hours until Saturday, until we could finally be alone without fear of interruption. Friday afternoon, as I was leaving school, Mr. Harrison intercepted me in the parking lot. He was leaning against his expensive-looking sedan, those aviator sunglasses hiding his expression, but I could feel the intensity of his gaze even through the dark lenses. Jake, he called out, pushing off the car and approaching me. Got a minute? My stomach tightened. Sure, Mr. Harrison. He walked with me toward the far end of the parking lot, away from any prying eyes. I need to ask you something, he began, his voice low and serious. And I need you to be honest with me. I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. Robinson, he said, the name a challenge in itself. What's going on between you two? My breath hitched, but I forced myself to meet his gaze, or at least where I imagined his eyes to be behind those glasses. Nothing. He's my math teacher. Is that so? He asked, stepping closer, invading my personal space. Because the way he looks at you, and the way you look at him, suggests otherwise. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Mr. Harrison stepped even closer, the scent of his expensive cologne wrapping around me, his dark eyes boring into mine as he slowly lowered his aviators. I'm not blind, Jake. I know exactly what he wants from you, he murmured, his deep voice dropping to a dangerous, possessive whisper. But tomorrow, you have to choose whose lessons you're truly willing to learn. He dropped his hand, leaving a lingering warmth on my shoulder as he turned and walked away into the fading twilight. Standing alone on the cold asphalt, the taste of Mr. Robinson's forbidden kiss still burning on my lips and the weight of Mr. Harrison's heavy promise pressing into my chest, I realized there was no turning back. The storm was coming this weekend, and I was caught right in the electric center of it.